the lines that go straight up and down, okay, from north to south and south to north. From north to south, from south to north and north to south, okay. So that's quite important, and we will be using these numbers at a later date to find our location on the map, okay. So using these eastings and northing numbers, easting numbers and northing numbers, and using these grid lines, okay, and using these what we call grid squares, okay, these 1 kilometre by 1 kilometre squares, okay, to find our location on the maps, okay, our grid squares there. All right, so that's all we really need to know, the basics about a map. I probably could go into maybe a couple of other things maybe some terminology just to finish it off, and I think we will, because I think it'll be absolutely worth it for you to do some terminology of some of the features that we call on the map. Okay, so I'll just find my rag. All right. And let's do that. So let's rub this out. Okay, so let's have a look at some terminology of some things that we might find on the map. So some of the things that we might, when we're using a map, you might hear a person say, let's have a look. Let's say we hear a person say a basin, all right? So if somebody mentions a basin on the map, I'll just turn this around so I can see it myself, what we're doing. So if somebody says basin, that would be talking about a feature on the map that looks like that. Okay, so a basin is something that might have water in it. Okay, we've got our water here. All right, see if I've got another pen. I'm not sure if I've got another pen somewhere. I do have one. Here we go. Okay, so let's imagine we've got a basin there. That's what's called a basin, and it may or may not have water in it. Okay, it may have water in it, it may not. So a basin, right, is just like a basin that you might have in the bathroom. So if you go into the bathroom, okay, and you've got your basin like that, all right, and it's got the hole at the bottom, all right, and you've got your tap here, all right, okay, and another tap here, right, and you've got your basin, all right. All right, there's your basin. And of course, the water would be in the basin here, okay. So a basin, when we're talking about on the land, is just something that could hold water in it, okay. So it's got like sides all around it. So if you're looking at, it's just a little hard to draw, okay. Imagine that, right. There's our contour lines, okay, our contour lines, and let's just say it was 80 meters there, 60 meters there, okay, and 40 meters there, right? Then obviously it would be a basin because it's the land, the ground is going in, okay, so it'd be, let's say 80 meters at the top here, 60 meters here, and 40 meters there, right? So there's the 40, there's our 60, and there's our 80, right? So the basin would be going in. So you might hear somebody say a basin, all right? Another bit of terminology you might hear from when somebody's reading a map might be something like what we call a saddle. So a saddle is like you've got a let's say something like this. Alright, here's our contour line. Okay, we've got another thing there and another thing there. So this is like a hill, and the hill is sort of like this. Might be sort of like that. Okay, so the saddle is like, if you look at that part of there, it's like a saddle, okay, on a horse. This is where the person would be sitting on the horse. It looks like a saddle, all right, that part there. So between these two features here, what we call knolls, between those two knolls is a saddle, the middle part. So the middle part here, in this piece here, okay, that's what we call the saddle, all right. A knoll, so that's what we call a saddle. Another feature that you might hear, okay, when you're looking on a map, is a knoll. Okay, a knoll is just a small feature all on its own. So it might be like that, the land's like that, okay, and the knoll is like that. So it's just a little feature that's sticking up. So it would look like that, all on its own, right? Yeah. And the other contour might be sort of like that, the other contour that's going around it, something like that. Okay, so that would be a knoll. It's just sticking up all on its own. All right, and that's what we call a knoll. All right. Okay, something else that we think is the top of a mountain, or the top of a hill, okay, is what we call a crest. So the top here is called the crest, and the crest is normally at the top here. So if I was down here looking up that way, this part here, which is near the top, that corner part just there, that would be called the crest. Okay, if I was on this side of the mountain, okay, and I was looking up here, the top is pretty much about here, all right? That would be the crest. So the crest of the mountain runs all the way along here, between there and there, in this area, is the crest. Okay, the top of the mountain or the top of the hill. Okay. Now, a thing called a false crest is that if we're looking up like this, okay, we're going up and we see a crest like that, okay, and then it carries on up, all right. Okay, so a false crest okay, means that we might be looking up and we think that's the top of the mountain. Okay, we think that's the top of the crest, the top, but it's not. It's a false crest, because as soon as we reach the top, okay, as soon as we reach the top up here, we get to here, and we can see, clearly see, that there's another crest here. Okay, and we go, oh, there's the crest, the top. This one here that we seen earlier is a false crest. In this case, this guy here is looking up and he sees this crest. He might think it's the top. When he gets to the top here, he realizes, oh no, it's not. This was just a false crest. What we thought was the top, but it's not actually. Okay, the actual crest that we talked earlier about is over here. All right, the top of the mountain. So you may hear that, a false crest. Another one might be an estuary. And an estuary is when we have, let's go to our blue, because it's water, we're talking about water now. An estuary is, let's imagine you have a river, okay, and the river spreads out like that, and you have, over here you have the ocean, okay, or the sea, okay, and the estuary is the part that goes from the river here, right, here's our river going that way. When it opens up like that and starts going into the ocean, this part here that opens up, right, we call it an estuary. I might be spelling it wrong, okay, but it's called an estuary, right? I think it might be estuary, okay, estuary, right, and that's the part that opens up before it goes into the ocean or the sea, right. So you might see that on the map, or somebody might be talking about it, and now you'll know what it actually means. Okay, another one is an escarpment, okay, and an escarpment is basically, it's like, how can I explain it? Here's my black pen. It's basically like if you have a hill, imagine, say, you have, let's go like something like this, okay, and it goes down like that, okay, and the hill goes sort of like this, the hill, right, and you can imagine as the hills go like this, it's got a really, the hill's coming along, I don't know, it's hard to say. Anyway, there's a big drop there, okay, and let's imagine that it may or may not have water down the bottom here, the ocean, right? So if you imagine that's the ocean, and you've got your hill here, okay, your mountains or whatever, and then it gets to the end of the mountains and it just drops straight down, right? It's like really straight, drops almost straight down into the water, okay? That's what we call an escarpment, okay? So it's really steep ground, okay? And we don't want to be going anywhere near that generally, okay? Because an escarpment is really steep, all right? So how would we normally see an escarpment from the perspective of the map? Let's imagine this is our hill, okay? And we get to the side of a certain part, all right? And it just drops straight down, right? When we look on the map might look something like this, okay, like that. Imagine this is our water here, all right? Then the lines on the map, the contour lines might be something like this, really close together. Right, they might go bigger like that. Right, really close together. Might carry on like that, and you can see these lines are like really close. So when you get lines that are really close, that means that it's really steep. Okay, all right. Right, so when the contour lines are like this, remember that might be 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 meters. So these are really close together, these lines, okay? I'll zoom it in a bit. So hopefully you can see that a bit better, all right? So these are lines here, the contour lines are really close together, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, and on the other side of the mountain, okay, it's 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, because all these contour lines join together. So this side are really tight together, which means there's just a drop. Okay, it's just a big drop off. Okay, so that would almost make this on this side, the escarpment, pretty much right up to here, dropping straight down, going off the thing we just did here. Alright, so that would be the escarpment. Okay, so you certainly don't want to be walking over this way and going off that, because you're just going to drop straight down into the, here would be our water. Alright, there's our water there. Alright, on the map. Okay. Now the water, something I probably didn't cover, is at what we call mean sea level, which is basically the middle of high tide and low tide. It's the average between low tide and high tide. And so on these maps, the water will normally show the mean sea level. Okay. All right. What's some other things you might see on a map that you might see? Okay, there might be a gorge. A gorge is something where you've got, I don't know, you've got one mountain like that, and you've got another mountain over here, and in between them, you can walk in between them. Okay, and it's a really steep area. All right, going in there. Okay, so a gorge on the map might look something like this. You'll have a feature here, right, and a feature here, right, and these are probably going to be quite close contours, right, and the gorge is in between, in the middle here. All right, you might walk between the gorge. Okay, so it's quite a close area with heavy lines on each side. Okay, all right, so basically a mountain range along here and a mountain range along here, and the closer the gorges together, the more dangerous it can be for an ambush. So if somebody was to come through there and you have soldiers up here on this side of the gorge and soldiers on that side of the gorge, the people that come through in the low ground, okay, are in big trouble. That's where a lot of people get caught out in ambushes. Very dangerous gorges. Okay. A pass could be, another one is called a pass. So that last one was called a gorge. Gorge? G-O-R-G-E. Gorge. Okay. Another one is a pass. Alright. And a pass is pretty much the same as a gorge, except you know how we had our two features here, right? A pass is normally where there's a road, okay, a road going through there, okay? So some passes like down the South Island called Arthur's Pass, okay? Or it might not be a road, it might just be a track, a walking track that you go through. And so that is called a pass, all right? And that was brought up from many, many years ago, where people would say, you can pass through those two hills there. Okay, you can walk through there. And they've obviously made a track or a road or something along those lines. Okay, a couple of last ones we'll chuck in there. Some very, very important ones as well. Is called a ridgeline. And a ridgeline is, say, a major... If you have something like that, right, where you're walking up the side of the mountain, okay, is called a ridge. Okay, so a ridge line would probably look on the map. So there's the ridge walking up along there, okay, going up. That's the ridge. It's the main ridge line. So on a map, you might see it something like... So the ridge line here would be up along here, coming up this way, walking up here. sticking to each of these points on the contour lines, going up like that. Okay, and getting to the top of the ridge line here, top of the crest, okay, top of the hill, top of the mountain, whatever, and carrying on down the other side of the ridge. Alright, so that would be the ridge line, so going up along the ridge. So those there are what a lot of deer like to use out in the bush, because it's the most easiest going when going out in the bush, going over mountains and hills. You want to stick to the ridge line. Okay. Now, something else that we have is offshoots. So this is called a ridge. Alright, a ridge. Now, something else that we have that's quite important is called spur lines. And a spur line would be something like this. Okay, so a spur line is something where it juts off the actual side of this main feature. Okay, and it sticks out. Okay, so let's say we had our ridge here like that. There's our ridge. Okay, and a spur line would sort of be a feature that sort of comes off. Let's say it's like this. Sort of comes off like that. So you can imagine, let's do like that. Okay, sort of like that. Okay. So for these contour lines would be looking like this. Contour lines are like that. So it's another main. It's like a ridge, like the main ridge here, but it's like a small ridge. Okay, and it just juts out, and that's what we call a spur. A spur or a spur line. Okay, a spur or a spur line. Right. Yeah, pretty sure it's just a spur. Okay, spur. Alright, so that's a spur. It just sticks out. A feature that just sticks out, comes off the main feature. Alright. Now, another one that's quite important is what we call a reentrant. Okay, so let's imagine we had two spurs. Let's imagine we had another spur come out here. Alright, so it's going sort of like that, the contours. Alright, so let's imagine we've got another spur line, another spur sticking out. Right, so that's one spur here and another spur over here. Right, S-P-U-R. Inside the spur, in the middle here, is called a reentrant. Reentrant. I'll try and spell it up here. A reentrant. Right, a reentrant. Right, a reentrant. And a reentrant looks something like, I'll try and do a 3D example of it. You'd have your main, let's imagine we've got something like that, and we've got like that, so we've got our main feature there and a main feature there. So imagine that's our one spur, okay, alright, and the hill's sort of going like, coming down like this, right, and another one's coming down like that, alright. Alright, so there's our one spur line coming off the feature, another spur line coming off the feature, and in the middle here, alright, is all what we call a reentrant. that part in there, right? All this part here, all this part coming up in here, right, is a reentrant. Okay, so in between two spur lines, in between two spurs, is a reentrant. Okay, I can't think of anything else. Maybe one other thing would be what we call undulating ground. And undulating ground is ground that is rolling. Okay, it's up and down, right? So if you can imagine that the hills are like this, it's like that. Okay, undulating ground. So you might have all your mountains. Let's imagine your mountains are over here, right? Some big mountains, and then you get down to the low level ground, and it's not flat. It's not just flat. It's undulating. It's sort of like up and down. All right. It's not flat. So undulating means ground that's up and down. All right. What else could there be? We have a couple of other terms. A lot of bush area where you've got lots of trees, okay, and forests and jungle. Okay, so imagine you've got lots of trees, okay. Here's our lots of trees. Imagine this area is just full of trees, okay. This area with full of trees, jungle, bush area, whatever it might be, okay, is what we call close country. Okay, so close country means all the trees, it's very close, it's very hard to get through, right? So a lot of hard work to get through it, okay? And if there's no trees, this whole area over here, right, all over here, hopefully I didn't realise I was that close in. Hopefully I wasn't missing any stuff out. This area over here, where there's no trees, would be what we call open country, right? Because it's all open. There's no trees. There may be rocks and a few trees here and there, but it's all open country, okay? So the open country may be open country, but it's undulating ground, all right? It's all up and down, all right? Undulating ground. So I think what we'll do is we'll end it there. I think you have some fairly good terminology with some of the things that we have on a map. Probably a couple of other real simple ones would be things like a stream is just a blue line like that. There's a stream. This here is what we would call when two streams come together. We call that a stream junction. Okay, a stream junction, which would be that part there. All right, where two streams come together. It might be a road. You have two roads. All right, a road, two roads coming together. Okay, that would be called a road junction. Right, that would be that part there, a road junction. So somebody might say to you, I'll meet you at grid reference blah 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 at the road junction. Okay, all right, or at the stream junction, and they'll give you a grid reference. We won't do grid references now, that'll be for another time. Okay, so that could be a couple of other things, and obviously if it was bigger water, okay, if it was like that, okay, then that would be more of either a larger stream or a river, getting into rivers, okay? So if it's like a bigger area, all right, like that, it would be a river, more getting into rivers, all right? Okay, so that would be getting into the to the rivers, okay, and that would be called a river junction, okay. So let's leave it there with some of the terminology, but I think that will help you out immensely when you're working with maps, especially if you're talking to other people about the route you're taking, or you're talking about things on the actual map itself. Okay, so what I want to quickly get into here now before we finish up is just a quick look at a couple of old maps, and let's have a look at this one here. It will require let's have a look. Okay, so I'm just looking for the geodetic datum. Okay, so the old New Zealand maps, okay, just for those that may have some old New Zealand maps, you would see here that the, I'll get a pencil, where are we? The old geodetic datum, I'll find it in here. The old New Zealand geodetic datum here was called 1949. Okay, the old geodetic datum. So if you're using an old map like this one here, you would have to type in to your GPS the old geodetic datum. So you'd choose UTM ups or UTM, okay, and then the datum that you would choose would be geodetic datum 1949. Okay, so that's just for those that are using thing. So when you're using a GPS, you need to make sure that you put in the correct datum. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that all maps are different. Okay, right. How do we fold a map? All right, how do we fold a map? Let's just quickly go into that, because you want to be able to fold your map properly. Okay, so what I do is I just get the map and I fold it in half, all right, like so, all right, and like that, and then you can have it either like that and fold it any way you know, fold it back in on itself if you want, and then I'll go back. You want to fold the map in half, okay, and then fold the map in half again, alright, and then fold the map on the other side in on itself. So it's like a, I don't know what that instrument is, it's sort of like, you fold it in on itself, and then you can fold it back in this way, in on itself, alright. So that's the first thing you want to be doing, is breaking it down into sections. Then from there, you can fold it up however you want to actually use the map. Okay, you could fold, say, this part in like that, that part under like that part under like that. Alright. Fold it in on itself like that. And have it in half like that. Okay, if you wanted it something like that. And so the area of operation that you might be working in might be here. Okay, or the area of operation might be on the back, wherever you're working. Okay, so it's up to you. All right, if you were working in, say, this area here, all right, we'd just fold it back over like so. Okay, we're working in this area, we would then just have it like so, like that. Okay, it's really up to you how you want to fold it. You could even fold it in even further to make it smaller. Okay, and have if you're working in that area or if you're working in that area, and you just swap it around to suit what area you're working in. So you just fold the map up until you get it in sections like so, okay, and then you can adjust it to however you want the map. Okay, just go to the section you want, and it's not rocket science. You just fold the map up. Okay, what does that do? It just keeps the map only folding in the parts that you folded it in, and it just makes it easier to find parts. It keeps it all nice and tidy. Okay, so this particular map here doesn't have anything covering it. Okay, and what I mean by covering it, I'll get another map here. Say for instance, here's a map here that is covered by plastic coating. Okay, so it's all covered up, and I could take the map out like this because it's already covered and protected, the map. Okay, now you can do that with your maps, or you could buy some plastic bags, okay, or a map case that have a ziplock or something like that, and you could carry your map in that. Okay, so you put your map in a plastic case. Now I used to just use a plastic bag back in the day as well. All right, just any plastic bag, a couple of plastic bags if you really want, just to protect it from the water and the rain. But you just need a decent plastic bag. You can get some quite good cheap Ziploc bags these days from when you do your shopping, and that would be perfect. Okay, if you're really worried about going through rivers and torrential rain and things like that, just put it in one bag here like that, fold it up, grab another bag, chuck it in another bag. All right, simple, done. Okay, so that's how we thing our maps. Where do you keep your map? You want to keep your map handy. Okay, keep it in a side pocket in your trousers, or keep it in behind your chest rig. Okay, in a jacket, somewhere where you can access it often. You don't want it in your pack, hidden away where you never use it. You want it on you all the time, so you can constantly be going to your map and sussing out where you are. Okay. And once we go through all the different things that you can do with the map and how to use it effectively, you'll be going to it all the time. Okay, so because you want to know where you are. Otherwise, if you don't know where you are, you're lost. Okay, can you rely on a GPS? Yes, but what if your batteries go flat? What if your GPS dies on you? Okay, because it's electrical, it dies. What if the in a survival situation, if the satellites get taken out? All right, and trust me, the Chinese already have the ability, from what they've shown us, to be able to shoot satellites out of the sky, blow them up. Okay, they've also been working on taking out satellites through hacking into them. Okay, and they've also been working on using things like lasers and that to damage the satellites as well, from the ground, from Earth up to the satellites. So we can't 100% rely on satellites, okay, in times of when there's problems. Also, the powers that be may shut the satellites down and not allow civilian use of those satellites. So learning how to use a map and compass is extremely important. And if you have a map and compass, as well as a GPS as well, if you wish, then that's fine. At least, but you should have a map and compass at the very least. Okay, it's more important than a GPS. Okay. Okay, I think what we'll do is we'll leave it at that, and I hope that you've learnt a lot. I know it's a long lesson, so to speak, but if you want to learn about a map, you need to learn about it properly and not half pie. If you watch a 5-minute video, you're not going to learn any real detail about maps, okay, and what they use for. Okay, so all of this is going to all come into show as we do more videos, and so anyway, I hope that helps you with using a map. And the next one we will probably go on to, I think, will either be a protractor or compass. Okay, and we'll probably do either compass in degrees and compass in mils, and probably protractor in degrees and protractor in mils. And we'll get into grid references and things like that. Anyway, thanks for coming along, and I'll see you on the next videos. Cheers, bye.